because when the lights go on and it's big boy football, they show up, and so. But I just love watching guys compete. It's really almost like a natural high for me. I just love it, and when you find kids that will just empty the tank for you, I have so much respect for them, and I look forward to seeing that on Saturday night.
Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
Welcome, everybody, to the glorious episode of the Put On Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting on the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSBR is my Twitter handle, and Ryan Holmes is RHOLM22. Please be aware. I feel about California, about the fires and stuff like that. It seems like, like I said, the Watch Duty app is a good app for you guys to have, so you can actually see what's going on. So definitely, and if you can find a legitimate charity to help out the families who are going through those tragedies, please do so as well. I want to thank everybody listening to us in snowy Louisiana, Hartford, Connecticut, Los Angeles, California, and the old home for the Raiders, Oakland, California. Ryan, how you doing today?
Doing good. Yeah, the fires are crazy, man. Like, there's two going on around me now. Luckily, nothing's got within like 20 minutes of the house, but
yeah,
every day it seems like a new one's popping up. These Santa Ana winds are out of control this year.
These winds are just no today it was like almost this morning. It almost knocked me over. So that was really crazy to see that. It reminded me of like the old cold winds they had in in Connecticut when I used to live out there. And they said something about like Florida has more snow in it than like Iowa and some of these other states. Like a couple other states who usually get snow combined. It's kind of crazy. As far as that goes.
The SEC just wants to be the Big Ten so bad now.
Well,
it's snowing in all the SEC towns.
Those back-to-back titles. We got the SEC worried about it, right? The NFL never disappoints in any offseason. I think that's what part of the reason why people love it is because of the obviously every game means something, and you only got 17 games, and plus they're just 24 hours, 365 in the news. The offseason a lot of times can be more exciting than the regular season for some of these teams. And this whole craziness with the Buccaneers job, that's going crazy. But right now, the Raiders have a general manager in place. They feel like nothing has been signed. John Spytek is that. So there is an athletic interview with him that's really, really good. I thought she asked him a myriad of questions that that I was thinking in my head, and then she went beyond that as well. So what are your first impressions of John Spytek and what you heard in that interview? Because I thought it was really well done. I thought he gave a lot of himself in that, so you got a chance to really get to know him.
Yeah, it was good. I retweeted it. It's something like 50 minutes long, so it's not like a quick 5-10 minute podcast. So you really get to sit down, and he basically goes through his career. He tells about his family, his background, losing his daughter, where he started, working his way up as a scout, working for multiple teams. And then you get to hear basically his ideas of team building and what he looks for in players. It's very informative for people that don't understand what scouts do. He breaks it down. And for me, I loved it because he showed compassion and he had some real empathy for what scouts do and being on the road and being away from your family for 11 months out of the year. And some of that stuff hit home with me personally, but he cares. He cares about the people that work for him. You can tell that he's going to be a really good leader. Just that he went into so much detail, and he gives credit to all the people that work under him in Tampa. He's not there to take the credit himself. And he's the kind of guy you want to work for if you are a scout. And he's been one. And just listening to him describe the importance of everything that they do and how you have to get 1,500 reports into a system to draft 7 or 8 players, and that process that it takes. I don't think people understand what really happens in these organizations when it comes to draft day. So if you want to hear him talk about players and team building and draft and what it entails is an entire scouting department from the ground floor up, it's a great podcast to listen to. And he's extremely qualified for this job too. This isn't he's Tom Brady's buddy, so let's hire him. This guy's been in the NFL for a long time. He's worked for a couple of different organizations. He's worked his way up. He was in Denver with Elway and when Peyton Manning got there, and he's been in Tampa. He's won a Super Bowl in Tampa when Tom Brady got there. So he's interviewed with other teams and he's well qualified. And I'm excited to see him get started. He does have connections. He did work with Champ Kelly in Denver. There's a couple of people on the staff that are familiar with him, but he sounds like a great guy to work for if you're in the scouting department.
He before I go into like some other thoughts about it, Diana Rossini is reporting that Liam Cohen is expected to be named the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, the pending the negotiations, and I guess he just left the Bucks unread, if you will, as far as that goes. He didn't return anything like that. So the Jags have their coach, and the Raiders are still searching for that. I think there was a lot of different things he said. I don't know if it was John Wooden who or somebody else said, but others like a team can achieve more if nobody cares who gets the credit. Like that's kind of I kind of get the feel for him, like and him trying to like talk about like maybe going back and forth with like younger scouts and like sometimes they're right, sometimes he's right, and like and just empowering them, like and just kind of talking about how like, hey, listen, like if you're talking to me about like about players, like unload the clip, like let me know like what you're talking. Let me know how you feel about all these players, and then we'll make a decision about it later on. But like, don't hold anything back. Do all those things. He also talked about the trust factor you have to have with scouts, which I thought was pretty cool. Like, hey, like there's not somebody overseeing you all the time, so you have to trust that person to go out there and do the work and stuff like that. So it was really kind of a great insight into that world. Also talked about how it's not glamorous. this guy was eating, I guess he had egg bites from Starbucks that happened to be in his bag, and it was like 12 hours in there, and he ate them anyway. So it wasn't like
breakfast burrito is the scout go-to because
yes,
it stays in your if as long as it's wrapped in aluminum foil, it'll stay.
Yes. Yeah.
I do. It hit home when he said, if you're in a hotel in Ruston, Louisiana, because you know what I was doing last May? I was in a hotel in Ruston, Louisiana. So that definitely hit home with me when he talked about that. And yeah, I think when you just listen to him talk and you listen to him talk about wanting to be in a room where he wants your opinion. And I think for young scouts, that's the biggest thing is like they want to be part of the group think. Okay, what does the industry think? What do the scouts in the field that I'm working with in my region think? The team wants to know what you think. They pay you for your opinion.
Yeah.
And we always say in the business, it's kind of like ROF is what we say, reports on file. So like if you disagree with someone else you work with, like we'll see and 3, 4, 5 years down the line. And you kind of just say, when you're right, you kind of just say ROF, buddy. Like, yeah, my report's on file. It's in there. You can go look it up. So
yeah,
you want that back and forth because you don't want everyone to agree with you because then you don't want yes men there. If they know you like a player, for instance, they know John Spytek likes player X. You don't want everyone to say, oh, I know he likes him, so I like him. Like he wants to know why someone might not like him. And maybe it's something that he hasn't thought about, or maybe it's something to do in the background or the makeup. But there's just, if you that's the one thing that I've learned over my time doing that is they pay you for your opinion. Don't be afraid to give it to them.
Yeah, no question about it. And I feel like that was it felt like a really open workplace. He also talked about how it's a place where people are not trying to leave all the time. Like, and if you look at the retention
until today.
Listen. Well, but he's been there for a while. But yes, I understand. I believe that was in October. October 22nd was that argue. But yeah. So like for the most part, I mean the team has been there for a minute. Stuff like that. So they've had kind of the same guys here and there. So we'll see. I mean, I think like I said, it is a difference. I mean, I think it was I forgot what NBA coach said it, but like the biggest seat biggest change you can make in seating is like the two seats to your left, which is like where the head coach sits. So now he's not the assistant GM anymore. He's not looking to say, hey, here's what I think. Here he's the guy who takes all any information in from the coaches, from the scouts, and says, hey, this is a guy. This is a guy who we need to take in the drafts.
Yeah, I do think, and I've seen some Raider fans kind of panic online by basically saying like they need to have this guy in place because they need to start scouting and they need to get everyone on the same page. The scouting department goes about its business whether or not there's a head coach in place at all. And what you do as a scout is you're going to tell them this player fits this scheme, this player fits this scheme, and this player fits this scheme. So like when they do get down and decide who the coaches are and what schemes they're going to run, they're going to be able to go back to the reports and decide which players fit. And then obviously the coaches will get involved as we get into February and then we get into pro days. Yeah, I think that the one thing when he talked about the scouting department, the biggest thing they need to do is talk the same language. That's 100%. Like when they get in there, when you have one scout in one part of the country and another and another, and they put a grade on a player, everyone needs to be using the same terms and the same language. So when one guy says, "Hey, this guy can be a swing tackle," everyone in the room knows what that means. And then when another scout in another part of the country does the same thing, like when you start lining these guys up on the board, it's much easier when everyone is on the same page, talking about what it takes to be a number one wide receiver and what are the traits that we want. Are we a size speed team? Are we a production team? So like it sounds like when you listen to it, production sounded like a pretty important thing in Tampa, and then the ability to compete. And he talked about he's looking for running backs that don't run out of bounds, that are looking for contact. He's looking for defensive backs and linebackers that aren't afraid of contact and tackling guys and getting them to the ground. So, and he made a good point when he talked about last year's draft is they needed rookies to step in and play because of the dead cap situation in Tampa after Brady left. So they went out and found guys that they thought mentally and had the maturity that they knew could handle a big role in a rookie season and step in basically. And that's when the production comes into it. There's not a lot they weren't drafting guys that needed time to develop. They were drafting guys that could step in and play right away. And that's what that team needed. And they were able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, they have won. And I think he also talked about that. I think it was a year where they had that was a dead cap year, right? Where they said they had to make sure they had players ready to go.
2 years ago, yeah.
2 years ago, right? So and he's been in he's been a different. I mean, he was in Denver when with Peyton Manning and that whole situation too. Like he's been in a lot of different spots, and he's been an asset. So far, it looks like he's been an asset for those franchises. And now he got interviews before, and now looks like he's going to be the GM general manager for the Raiders. Back to Liam Cohen, because obviously they work together in Tampa, and he did have some really good things to say about Liam Cohen. The Jaguars have not even touched the Rooney Rule on the general manager. So
they haven't interviewed anyone. It's new. They just let Balky go 2 days ago.
It's new, and I think the owner, I think Khan just wanted to get the head coach in there, obviously, and this was a situation where he was just like, this guy, I don't want this guy going back to the Buccaneers. This is my guy. I need him for my quarterback. If it means getting rid of Balky, it means get rid of Balky. For those who are kind of worried about the situation on the Raiders side, like, hey, they work together. Should we be worried about it? I mean, they could be, for all we know, Spytek could be en route to Los Angeles to Las Vegas right now. There's probably maybe some loose ends in his house in Tampa. But until that gets done, should we be like wary of the situation, or should it just be a situation where, like, I mean, I think they got I think the Jacksonville Jaguars got their guy, and then now the Raiders have their guy, and then now they'll find a GM. Raiders will find a coach, and then take it from there.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. If we go another 3 or 4 days and we get to Monday of next week and the Raiders haven't made official, then I will.
I agree.
Liam Cohen worked in LA with the Rams, so he may have a guy from the Rams that he wants to work with. Mike Greenberg is another assistant general manager with the Buccaneers who interviewed for other GM jobs, specifically the Jets this year. So maybe he wants to bring him with him. I don't. When you sit down and think about it, Liam Cohen has only known John Spytek for 1 year. Liam Cohen has known Tom Brady since college, and they had a relationship. And I was listening to I forget which reporter it was. I was listening to him at the gym the other, and they talked about like Tom Brady used to have these meetings every Tuesday and Wednesday with the Patriots, where they'd sit down and break down the
Yeah.
opponents and the game plan, how to attack them. Do you know who Tom Brady did that with when he was in Tampa? He did it with John Spytek. So this is
Mhm.
a deeper relation. This is a deep relationship. I can't imagine John Spytek just burns that bridge with Tom Brady just to run to Jacksonville with Liam Cohen. He has the ability to hire whatever coach he wants now.
Yeah.
And this Raiders coaching search might take another turn. They might bring in more candidates. I know Raider fans are panicking, but the list isn't just the 3 or 4 guys that are left that they've done interviews with. It wouldn't shock me if they went out and interviewed other people as well.
Yeah, and just the news keeps coming in. Robert Saleh is going to look like he's going to return as a defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers. So,
Cross him off the Raiders list too. Then
so and Niner fans can be ecstatic because they got one of their guys back. Somebody texted me a question about that when it happened. He said, can they double up on those picks? Because it's kind of unprecedented for him to come back to it. So if he becomes a head coach next year, do they get they get that third round pick again? That's a great question.
I don't know
I gotta
the
find out
technicality with that. It might be once per person.
per person. Yeah,
I don't know if the rule if like if he leaves again.
yeah,
I would assume they don't. I would assume it would
yeah. I
be
think so too.
each person that leaves because you can't just keep rehiring and let them go. It's a precedent that probably won't come up very often, but I would doubt they would get 2 more picks
Yeah, me
if
too.
Solid did leave next offseason.
Should the Raiders have had an interest in Salah, or you think he needs to get more seasoning, or
Um,
would you have been interested in?
I would have talked to him and just see what he thought about the organization, where they could improve, what routes he would go about. I viewed him more as like he needs to go back into the defensive coordinator role, spend a
Yeah,
couple more years there, and then rebuild his image. Just how everything went down the last year and a half in New York.
yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. So let's go through some of these candidates now. And so it sounds like I think that the guy who Raider fans are nervous about is Pete Carroll. And I think not because he's not a good coach, but because of his age. I would say that like he's still like on the one side of it, that his age is a thing, but also on the other side of it, it's like he would still be the best coach we've had in a long time. Like to be kind of frank and honest, and obviously being a USC fan, he always is always I always got a soft spot for him in my football heart for him. I think it looks like he has a good recognition for people on his staff. Like I mean, Jed Fish was on his staff in Seattle, who's not a head coach of Washington. Robert Saleh, Dave Canales, who's the head coach of the who was the coordinator for the Bucks, not a head coach of the Panthers. He has some really nice names on that list, coaches of note. I think at the end, I think he had Clint Hurt as his defensive coordinator in the last 2 years, and that was really not a good situation. It sounds like he stayed with them when they wanted to move on from him because he the last 2 years in Seattle were not very good. What were your thoughts about Carroll possibly becoming the head coach of the Raiders, and then like his possible staff and running mates?
So I'm torn on the Pete Carroll thing. I'm in the Raiders need a long term. They need to think about this over the next 5 to 10 years, and they
Mm-hmm.
need to build this thing right. They're in a tough division. No questions asked about that. They're in a division with at least two, potentially three pretty good quarterbacks, including the best quarterback in the league. The
Mm-hmm.
Raiders aren't there yet. This team is not ready to compete at the high levels that it needs to. Where we want a championship. We don't just want to be the 7th seed in the wild card. Um, so for me, bringing Pete in and being a culture builder, he can do that. My question is, what is six? And I posted this on Twitter. No one answered it. What does success in a 3 year period with Pete Carroll look like? No one gave me an answer to that question.
Yeah,
So I
I didn't
don't know
see that
what
one.
success with Pete Carroll is. If he's going to come in and rebuild it, I'm not a fan of the groom is replacement, head coach in waiting. That never works.
Never
And
works.
if you go look at Pete Carroll's staffs, Dan Quinn's the only one that left that became a successful head coach that was a coordinator. Dave Canales was the quarterbacks coach. He wasn't the offensive coordinator there. He left to go to Tampa. But when you just start looking at it, the staff's his last few years there, as you mentioned, Shane Waldron, Clint Hurt. The one thing that I think with Pete is I think he's loyal to his assistants to a degree. Like if he brings in guys, he's gonna keep them in those positions as long as he can,
Yeah.
whether they're successful or not. That's kind of my problem. So like the Raiders can't hire a head coach. What leads me to believe that they can not only hire a head coach and at the same in the same process bring in an assistant who's going to be the young up and coming replacement down the line. So they need to get it right once before I believe they can get it right twice in the same hiring cycle. Now, if you want to go way back in the day, Pete Carroll did bring in Lane Kiffin. He did bring in Steve Sarkisian when he was at USC to help with the offense. But I don't. For me, it's hard for me to envision this going great for 4 years.
Yeah.
The Raiders make two. They'll say they make the playoffs twice. They put a quarterback in place. Are they really going to have like a McVay, a Ben Johnson, a Kyle Shanahan, like offensive guru, up and coming guy on their staff? I'm going to say probably not. So I look at Pete Carroll in a 3 or 4 year window and what can he do to win and help this organization? I don't even think about 5, 6 years down the line because I'm not a fan. Like I said, I don't think he can build it up and just hand the keys over to some other guy on the staff. Because when you go look at the staffs in Seattle outside of Dan Quinn, they didn't have anyone for him to do that. So I would think if he lasted 4 years and they were okay, but he needed to step down at 78 years old, they're going to have to do this all over again and go hire another coach. So I just look at Pete Carroll as like a 3 or 4 year window. What can he do? Yeah, can he turn this thing around and get the players to buy in? Absolutely. But best case scenario for me is if they slow build this thing up because Pete Carroll's going to want to play a bunch of young guys. That's what he does. They're not going to go out and spend a ton of money in free agency and throw money around and put a ton of veterans on this team and try to win. He's going to be here to try to set the foundation. Hopefully they win, but the way it's constructed now, you're probably a 6, 7 win team next year. You're an 8, 9 win team in year 2. Maybe you get to 10 wins by year 3, and then he's 77 years old. So it seems too short to try to catch lightning in a bottle, but I do think he's a really good candidate. And I wouldn't mind if he's the head coach, but like I said, like we need to stop talking about the grooming the replacement head coach and waiting because that is not a logical path to go down because it just doesn't work.
100%. And I think you asked that question. And you asked the question. It's not really people couldn't answer it because it's probably not the direction the Raiders should go. It really isn't. And go ahead.
I would add this with Pete Carroll. You're getting a defensive-minded guy, an old-school guy. If you want aggressive, go for it on 4th down, aggressive play caller, analytical guy. Pete Carroll is not your guy for that. This is going to be play defense, field position, kick field goals.
Run the ball.
The same stuff that Raider fans have been complaining about for years. So if they do hire Pete Carroll, don't expect the Raiders to be aggressive on 4th down because he's never really done that.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess so. Nothing ever comes out by accident in my mind. So like when I hear Spags' name floated out there because Tom had a tough time against Spags, whatever. And I'm looking at his head coaching record right in my face, and how do you okay, you're the new guy, you're the GOAT, you're all these things, I get it. But how do you come to a fan base and hire a coach who is 11-41 as a coach? Like his record is 11-41. Like that is god awful. That's not even worth somebody saying, "Hey, he deserves a second chance." Like, I mean, Cliff, I can make an argument for. Like, I can make an argument for McCarthy, but I can't make an argument for somebody who's 11-41.
The argument is he's had a really good defense in Kansas City with a ton of different people. It doesn't matter who they plug in on defense. He's been able to produce and produce in the playoffs. You're hurting a division rival, which is great. What does the offense look like? Who's he going to hire? Who's going to run it? You don't have a quarterback. Like, if you want to fix the defense, bring him in. The Raiders are going to have Christian Wilkins and they're going to have Max Crosby up front, and then you bring in all the blitz looks. Like I said, they've rotated corners, safeties, linebackers. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Kansas City's had a good defense, and they create turnovers. So like, I'd be happy about that. I'm worried about going back into the head coach's chair, leading men, overseeing the entire operation. Because, like you said, like he did not do that in New York. He might be one of those guys that's just a great coordinator.
Mhm.
Norv Turner was an offensive coordinator, but I don't know. Like to me, he'd probably be down the list a couple of names. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't love it. He's younger. I think he's what, late
Six,
50s or mid 60s, mid
he
60s,
is
65.
he is 60. You hit it right on the nose, I think. He is 65. He's 65. Yeah, his birth, he will turn
So
66 during the season.
so 6, 7, 8 years maybe, and that's a long time for a Raiders coach. I don't know the last time we've seen a guy go that long, but
Yeah.
um, it's going to come down to the offense. Like, who can he bring in? Now, if you're a big fan of Trey Smith and you want to go get some of the free agents on Kansas City, you're going to want to hire guys from their organization. But um, the Raiders just aren't getting the interviews with the offensive coaches because, lo and behold, they don't have a quarterback, and guys are not running to take that job. So we'll see.
We'll see. So you also got McCarthy and Kingsbury as well. McCarthy doesn't. I don't know if he's gonna. It sounds like he might be in play for the Saints. I'm not sure. We'll have to see about that. And then Kingsbury, you'd have to wait for right to go after this weekend. Todd
Until they
Monken
lose,
until they lose. Yeah, actually, until they lose because they could
because
win
they,
this.
they didn't request them before.
Yeah, and then you got Todd Monken. Talked about Pete Carroll, and then you got Kellen Moore. Any of those names? I mean, I would talk to Cliff. I would talk to Todd. I think they requested Todd, but Todd didn't do an interview with him, right? So
No,
and
they
then
didn't.
they did it, and then Kellen Moore would be a guy I want to talk to because it sounds like Schottenheimer is going to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, Monken's the one to circle here because he has a relationship with John Spytek. He was in Tampa with him from 2016 to 2018. Um, the question is, does he want to leave Lamar to come coach the Raiders? In his case, he might want to just because of his age. He's not really getting a lot of play with the other interviews. If he wants to be a head coach, this might be a great chance for him. Who knows if he's going to have this opportunity again in the future? Um, Cliff Kingsbury would be a tough one for me because of everything that went down last year, and Mark wouldn't give him the third year because AP didn't have the third year. Is he really going to walk away from coaching Jaden Daniels, and he'll be the talk if they get to the Super Bowl and then next year they get back to the playoffs and have success, he'll be the Ben Johnson. He can have whatever job he wants. Does he want to attach his name to the Raiders? Because he's only going to get one more chance. Like Cliff Kingsbury has already been a head coach in the NFL, and it didn't
Yeah,
work out in Arizona.
100%.
And he had Kyler Murray there. So I'd have a hard time thinking that he would leave Jaden Daniels at this point to come coach the Raiders, barring an absurd contract that's going to pay him, 11, 12, $13 million a year that you're hearing these numbers thrown around with Liam Cohen. And obviously with Ben Johnson getting, I think the reports are $13 million a year. So coordinators don't make that. He'd triple his pay, but he's also still getting paid by the Arizona Cardinals. So like,
Yeah,
he doesn't need money.
he
So it
doesn't.
may
He
be
doesn't.
just him waiting for a better opportunity. So the Raiders may have to go the defensive coach route here. And Brian Flores' name was thrown around early. That may reemerge. So again, the Raiders are going to open this up. And who knows who John Spytek wants? This
Yeah,
may be like, hey, John, who do you want? We'll bring a couple more guys. And they're in no hurry because as soon as Schottenheimer gets hired, as soon as if McCarthy goes to the Saints and Liam Cohen goes to Jacksonville, the Raiders are going to be the only team without a coach.
yeah.
So they can just sit there and wait, and they can wait it out, and they can get into early February and make their decision to going into the week of the Super Bowl,
Just
or
like
even
old,
after the Super Bowl,
just like old times with
just like
Al.
the old Al Davis way.
Just like old times with Al. The Raiders the last team to get a head coach. That'd be.
And there may be guys out there we don't know about. No,
Yeah.
there's nothing coming out of Vegas. None of these beat writers have any idea what's going on.
Yeah.
It's just you just wait until Rappaport, Pelissero, Jordan Schultz, like Dan Rossini, Josina Anderson, these people break it because loose lips sink ships, and Tom Brady is running a pretty tight ship in Las Vegas right now.
Yeah, and it just seems like people are just not getting any. The people who had access or like maybe had be able to text the owner are talking about how they can't talk to him right now because they're getting left on red. No, and there's been no response as well. So the Raiders pick 6 in this draft coming up here, and we all know the biggest need is probably is quarterback. They obviously have other needs, but until they fix that, I mean, let's be honest. Like, did we talk about the Ben Johnson thing? Did we talk about the Ben Johnson thing yet? So just real quickly, I mean, just like obviously, it sounded like for that they lost on what, Saturday night. So
Saturday night,
Saturday night, and then he got the job on Monday. So
Monday
and then
morning.
Monday morning. So it sounded like to me that while the national people were talking about the Raiders getting being the front runner for him, it sounded like to me that, from the way he talked about, the biggest factor in coaching or football is the quarterback, and even transcends turnover ratio and all stuff like that. Also, we talked about. It sounds like that's really not like the Raiders did not have a chance in here. It was just really tight. Like you mentioned about tight lips. They were pretty much tight-lipped about it, and then they were going to get Ben Johnson, and that was going to be it because they have Caleb Williams.
Yeah, it came down to the quarterback position. So, I went into this thing and we talked about this in October, November, December, and I was like, Ben Johnson is not going to take the Raiders job. And then I kind of fell in the trap when he took the interview, and then boom, you started seeing all the reports that he was the favorite, and then we kind of got our hopes up. But should have stuck with my initial gut that he wasn't going to take this job
Yeah,
because this wasn't the best job. There wasn't a quarterback
he
here.
was a quarterback.
And it could have been a thing where, the Raiders reportedly, I don't know if it's true or not, but Hondo Carpenter said they were offering 6 years, 90 million, so $15 million a year. Sounds like he got 13 out of Chicago. So maybe initially, Chicago didn't want to up the ante, and then when push came to shove, they said, we're going to give you what you need, $13 million. Here you go. So it wasn't money. By all reports, the Raiders were going to offer more money.
Mhm.
And he literally said, like you mentioned, quarterback success is more important than turnover ratio. And without a quarterback,
Mhm.
it's tough to win. So it sounds like there was a split camp the week before he got here going into last week. And it sounds like some people had good information and some didn't either. And then everyone acted surprised when he didn't take the job, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, when you saw, I got excited the minute the Lance Newmark's coming in on Sunday morning. I'm like, all right, here we go. And then it was
Yeah,
like, the next morning you text me, I was at the gym, and you're like,
yeah,
Ben Johnson's a bear, and I'm like, oh no, he's just using it for leverage. And then you send me
yeah,
the tweet because
yeah,
I hadn't looked at my phone. I'm like,
yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah, I know. I did. I mean, like I said, I thought it may because there were so many like there are people who were pretty good. We're pretty good with information. Like, you know what I'm saying? And obviously, people can change their minds, but it does sound like in that whole Ben Johnson situation, it was a situation where the Raiders. I mean,
I
the
don't think
Raider.
he had a change of heart Sunday night because Jared
No,
Goff turned the ball over like that. I
no,
know people ran with that, but and
no,
he even
and
said he
yeah,
wanted to Chicago last year and it didn't open up. Like that's the job he was waiting for. So
yeah.
um sounds like the Raiders were never really in play.
Yeah. So it is what it is. And then Caleb Williams was in there with the Matrix outfit on in the press conference today, which was pretty hilarious. But yeah. So I mean, he was happy. He looks happy. Ben Johnson can't stop smiling. So we'll see what that division looks like. Should be fun times in the NFC North. Getting the Raiders are at 6 right now. Getting to 1. Let's just say the Titans are like, hey, we want to we're gonna ride with Levis. We're gonna roll with that. Try to get the offensive line. Try to do all the things we can to get Levis where we need him to go. What would it take to get to that marker to go from 6 to 1, so the Raiders can kind of control their draft and get whatever quarterback they want.
So I believe that pick's for sale. When Mike, the new GM Mike Borgonzi at his press conference said, "We're not going to pass on a generational talent." That to me says we're not going to take one of these quarterbacks. Bring me your offers. He put a yard sale for the number one pick just to see if he could drum up some interest, which was a pretty smart move here. Um, they're probably comfortable sitting there and taking Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, whichever one they want, and waiting on the quarterback group, because this isn't a great quarterback group. Maybe he doesn't like these guys, and he's going to get a chance to build this thing. And what better way to build this thing if you're not sold on the two quarterbacks to get a bunch of draft picks?
Real quick, real quick before you go on, would Levis be, if he's in this draft, would he be? I think for them looking at it, would he be above or at where Cam and Shador are? I mean, for them. So I mean, that's a question that they might have internally. So. Yeah. Okay.
I think he would be after those two guys.
Okay.
Maybe he has his eye on a later guy. Maybe he knows that he's going to have time to build this thing. Maybe he moves Jeffrey Simmons and gets more picks. Who knows? Who knows what they're going to do? What would it take to get from 6 to 1? Assuming that means you're going to miss out on Hunter and Carter, it's going to be at least 2 1s and 2 2s probably. Like, it's not going to be cheap.
Yeah.
Is it doable? Yeah, because if you get the quarterback you want, you hit on it, no one's going to ask these questions down the line. Now,
nobody's
going to
care.
No one's going to say anything if you don't have a first-round pick next year and you have a quarterback that leads you to 7 or 8 wins and shows upside as a rookie. So we'll see what happens. The funny thing is, the more you listen to it, and we've talked about this again throughout the fall, that as good as Shedeur Sanders is, like, when you break him down and you break down arm strength and athleticism and the things that scouts look for, he doesn't check a lot of those boxes. He checks the quarterback boxes: accuracy, toughness, decision-making. So I've seen a lot of people come out recently saying, like, there's a chance he's going to get to 6. Daniel Jeremiah was on TV today. I was watching it, and he basically said, like, it's a split camp. Like, there's people that think he's a second rounder. So there is an opportunity where if one of these two guys slides, I think it will be Sanders. And it's not 0 that he gets to 6. It's probably 10, maybe 15% now. Now, the question is going to be, when he goes to the Shrine Bowl practices, is he going to do the practices, or is he going to meet with the players? Is he going to play in the game? What's he going to do at the combine? If he shows up at the combine and he doesn't run and he doesn't throw, like, we'll see.
And put it all on his pro day. I mean, he kind of needs. I mean, I thought it was.
I don't think he's going to do anything at the combine, honestly, because it wouldn't benefit him to throw or run, because he's not going to, like, knock your socks off doing either one of them.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, like, I do think last year, when I think JJ opened up a lot of people's eyes when he threw at the combine, and people saw his deep ball accuracy and his velocity in which he threw the football. So I think people it can't be a good thing for them, but, like, it just, it's not. I don't think it's a great look for him to do it. I think he should do it, because either way it's on tape already. And it's also in and he'll be doing it at his pro day. So we'll see. So some players don't do it. Some players do it. We'll have to see as far as that goes with the Raiders and Shedeur Sanders.
If the Raiders do get to 1, Cam Ward's in play here too. So
yes.
We'll see. Cam Ward has probably a little bit better arm, a little bit better movement skills. A little bit better playmaker outside the pocket. Shedeur is better inside the pocket.
Yes.
So
we'll see. He's offensive line reliant more so than Cam, even though Cam is not an extraordinary athlete as far as that goes. Go ahead.
I would say with Shedeur, just because he doesn't have a big arm and he's not an elite runner doesn't mean he can't be a good quarterback. I want to make sure that's clear. Like, if you really, really want to squint hard enough, I've always thought he's like the version of Geno Smith, the Geno Smith that's playing right now. That's a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah.
Who I wouldn't mind the Raiders trying to go get if he's available in Seattle. He needs a new contract there. Best case scenario, like, is he some version of Joe Burrow? Like, can he be that? Like, Joe Burrow doesn't have the biggest arm. Joe Burrow isn't the best scrambler, but he does enough of it. So, like,
yes. Yeah.
Those are the camps. Like, and there's camps that think he's not either one of those guys. So he's somewhere in between those two guys, I would say.
Yeah. Does Miro and these are all questions that you guys send us. So I appreciate it. Does Miro is he more like Jalen Hurts or more like Lamar Jackson? I would think it more Jalen Hurts as far as like running ability.
Yeah, I'd say Jalen Hurts. He's probably got a stronger arm than Jalen Hurts. Again, big lower half, explosive runner. You can do design runs with him. You can run counter bash with him. He's not the elusive guy in the open field Lamar Jackson is. He just doesn't have that kind of twitch, but he's strong. He can move. Um, if you go that route, you have to redo the whole offense, though. You can't put him in like a West Coast offense. You can't put him in a timing based offense where he's got to line up his steps with getting the ball out to different routes. It's more of play action, run the ball, get the quarterback involved in the run game, design 5 or 6 runs for the quarterback specifically. And you're betting on a lot of stuff out of structure with him. If you want him to sit in the pocket and go 1, 2, 3 and hit the third receiver in the progression, that's probably not what he's going to do. It's going to take him time to do that. While he does have a really good arm, I do think he throws the fastball a little bit too much. Like he's got to take something off of it and have better touch on the short and intermediate routes. And then he's got to get more air on the ball when he throws it down the field. It's more of like a line drive.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really work in the NFL. You got to give these receivers a chance to make a play in the ball and jump into defensive backs and get pass interference and create conflict down the field. Whereas the guy that doesn't get air on the ball, air underneath the ball, and he's just throwing like darts down there, it's really hard for receivers to adjust to those.
So interesting. Keep those questions coming. Just real quick before we go, championship Sunday coming up. One thing about going for 2-point conversions. My philosophy on 2-point conversions, because people ask what our philosophies were on it. Because I saw that in the Ravens game against the Bills. I like to wait until I have to go for it. That's always been like the way I look at it. I think they went. I think they scored a touchdown and they went for it and missed it in the third quarter, so they ended up having to do it later in the game. What are your thoughts about a 2-point conversion and when to go for it?
Ideally, I wouldn't do it until you get into the fourth quarter. Like you can make the argument late third to do it. I'm not going to chase points till I need to.
Yeah.
Kick the extra point because I'm always worried about like if they kick a field goal, can I get back in it? Am I still down a touchdown? Whereas if you don't, like maybe you're down 5 instead of 4. I'm a fan of it. Like if you're up and then you score, let's say it's like a 1-point game and you score, so it's a 7-point game. Instead of kicking the extra point to make it 8, go for 2 to make it 9 and make it a 2-possession game, because the odds are if you miss it and you're up 7, the odds that the other team scores and then they go for 2 to win or lose the game is much smaller. Yeah. So I like to use it when I'm ahead too in certain situations. But like you said, I'm not chasing points until I absolutely have to.
Yeah.
The math doesn't work out because the 3, 4, and 7, when you start thinking of the different ways that those can add up versus field goals and kicking extra points versus not, like there's just too many outcomes where I would rather keep it close all the way to the end.
Yeah, no question about it. We got Commanders at Eagles, a surprising Commanders. Or keep it rolling. This is kind of the second time we've seen the head coach of the Commanders kind of go through what could be a Super Bowl run here. What are your thoughts about this game? I would say I probably will take the Eagles in a close one, but I do think that this Jaden, if they leave time on the clock with Jaden, I mean, who knows? I mean, the guy has been playing fantastic, and he has a really great rapport with Cliff Kingsbury right now.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Eagles. They're at home. Saquon Barkley is a beast. That offensive line is moving people and doing work. I think the injury to Sam Cosmi, who's probably the best offensive lineman on the Commanders, him going down, the right guard, is just going to open up a world of hurt with Jalen Carter on the other side. Going up against him, and that Eagles front I think is going to eat because the Redskins offensive line isn't great. They don't. So as long as they can keep Jaden in the pocket and not let him get out and do all these explosive runs. Now Jalen Hurts isn't 100%. He hasn't been very good throwing the ball a lot lately, but I still think Saquon's going to do enough. Their defense is going to do enough, and they're at home. I think they win this game by a touchdown.
So we got I think we both have the Eagles going to the Super Bowl. And then are they going to be facing the Chiefs for a rematch, or are we going to get the Bills finally getting over the hump here?
No one circles the wagons like the
Yeah,
Buffalo Bills.
I was waiting for you to
I,
say it.
I'm just waiting for. I like Josh Allen. I want to see the Bills get in there. I think it'd be a better matchup. I think the Bills defense is playing really well right now.
Mhm.
As long as that Teron or Johnson, the nickel, and Matt Milano can go here. I think that their defensive line is doing just enough to where they can affect Patrick Mahomes here. And I think Buffalo being able to run the football has been the difference this year. Basically morphing themselves, James Cook going off. They have the tight ends they can get the ball to. And then Josh Allen in the running game is just good enough. So they beat them once this year. I know that I think Josh Allen's 0-3 in the playoffs against the Chiefs. I just think it's Buffalo's year. So I think we're going to have Buffalo. It's going to be close. I think Buffalo might win by a field goal. Hopefully Bass doesn't miss this year like I think he missed last year.
Mhm.
And so Buffalo, Philadelphia going to the Super Bowl. I think it'd be a good Super Bowl. I'd like to see that. I don't want to see a rematch of the Eagles
Yeah.
and the Chiefs.
I'm gonna probably pick the Chiefs here. I just can't. Whatever. I think the only how you know how like remember a while back when the Patriots played the Ravens at home and they just blitzed them, and then Ray Rice went nuts and just blew the Patriots out. I think that's the only way to beat the Chiefs in their building at Arrowhead. I just feel like if it's a close game, like it's like the 15-yard penalty will come into play. Like somebody will miss somebody will have a missed assignment on Kelsey, and he'll be wide open for 30 yards for a big play. Like something's gonna happen in the game where the Chiefs find the way if you don't blow them. So I think if they can get maybe it's like that or kind of that crazy game where you get like a pick six and then you score on your drive, and then next thing you know you're up 17-0 before you know it. They don't. This is not the old Chiefs team. Remember they were down 24-0 to the Texans, and then they just stormed back and won the game by.
That's Deshaun Watson, yeah.
Yeah, when they came back and just destroyed them, right? I don't think that this team can. I think this team would really struggle if they got put in that position. So I think that if they can just keep doing that, the ball control thing doesn't work because you're going to get called for penalties to bog down your drive. You're asking your offensive line to play perfectly. I think for the Bills to win, they have to kind of smoke them. And like just that odd game where they just next thing you know, boom, you like maybe you show up late to the game because you're working or something like that, and you begin the second quarter, and you're like, what the hell happened? How was it 24-3 Bills? Like that's the only chance I think that they have to win. So for me, I think it's a close game. I think the kicker comes in and wins the game late for the Chiefs. They win that game. I think 27-24, and go to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, again.
Well, hopefully they call offsides on their field goal block team because they did it twice last week and they didn't throw the flag at all.
What
So,
does that penalty doesn't exist in Arrowhead? It doesn't. But I know
don't touch Patrick Mahomes.
I do say this, and like I don't wish injury on anybody, but there is going to be a time where a coach is just going to say we're going to get the 15-yard penalty anyway. If he does that thing where he slows up on the sideline, just lay him out. Like somebody's going to just say, hey, we're going to get called up for the penalty anyway. So instead of him just like doing the body divots or the LeBron James and flopping in that situation, just lay him out. You might get a hit in because we're getting penalties for everything anyway.
Where's Winston Moss when you need to throw a quarterback under the bench?
Remember
when he did that to Elway?
Yeah. Do you remember
threw him right underneath the bench?
Do you remember when Tillery laid out Herbert in the game in SoFi? Like it just so something like I just feel like he really is kind of skirting it. It's almost like do you remember when like the NCAA changed that rule so quickly when Kenny Pickett faked the slide and ran for a touchdown? Like that's something that like they could really do this, do all of a service where he just have to just run out of bounds. Like if he's not gonna run out of bounds, then he's fair game. And but I'm just saying, like one of these coordinators just gonna say, like, I mean, a coach is gonna say, hey, like you know what, like we're gonna get the penalty anyway, just lay him out, get a hit in because it really is it really is skirting. Go ahead.
I'd like to see him if a quarterback wants to run, they're a runner. Like once you're outside the pocket and you start running around and you break the line of scrimmage. None of this like late slide and the guy barely breathes on you. That's a penalty. You want to run? and we'll
Yeah.
see what happens. Like, you're a runner, and then that won't happen anymore. They won't do that because they're trying to protect the quarterbacks. But
Yeah.
no, I think Buffalo finds a way here to win this game. I think they do. I don't love Sean McDermott. I don't love his game management. But I think the Bills do
Hey,
find a way.
now the Bills find a way. You want to talk? Do you want to talk to Joe Brady, or is he too
No,
young? No, no interest.
not ready for. Is he bringing Josh Allen with him?
No, he could. It'd be great if he did.
Yeah.
I guess not. All right, Ray. All right, Ray Nation. Stay safe. Especially the folks who live in Southern California. We're always watching for. So what's going on now? We got fires in San Diego too. So down here, so it's like it's everywhere. So let's be careful. All right, take care.
All right. Take care.
Take care.